Hello everybody, and today we are back in The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. This is Thannus here, and in the last episode, we had completed the last dungeon of the game. And in this episode, we're actually going to be tackling something a bit different. So, the entire series, the entire LP, I've kind of avoided going into this general area. So, what I'm going to be doing today is we are going to be finally checking out Dampe's shack. Now, the way this works is, speaking to Dampe here, he's going to go ahead and actually introduce us to chamber dungeons. And whenever we complete new dungeons, or buy new chamber stones, or find new chamber stones, he's going to make chamber stones based on those dungeons or stones that we have. Like so. And when he says, sit down and tell me about it, that means he's making some based on a dungeon. Whereas when he mentions the chamber stones themselves, that means he's making some based on the chamber stones. And we have some new chambers. Basically, those are used for making the dungeons. So, a few basic things here. The arrange lets you arrange your own dungeons. Most of them are specific to a specific challenge, however, there is a free arrange mode. The amiibo is, you can unlock certain chambers or perks, I guess, with the amiibo. And obviously quit is to close out. So we're going to go ahead and select amiibo first, and we're going to do get special chamber here. So we're going to touch the Link's Awakening Link amiibo, which came out with the game, to the NFC touch point on the controller. And once we take it off, we will actually unlock a new chamber stone. Great Fairy's Chamber. And we also get the Shadow Link effect. Now, the Shadow Link effect is basically an extra challenge for the chamber dungeon, which allows you to kind of fight against a shadow version of Link himself. This is a feature that was in A Link Between Worlds specifically, where you could fight a dark version of yourself. However, this is different in that it's locked specifically to the amiibo, and it's only available in this dungeon mode, whereas in Link Awakening, it was a challenge mode included in the base game. I mean, not Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, sorry. So, to introduce us here, we're going to start off with the first challenge, Dungeon Arranging 101. Let's go ahead and select this. So we're going to press Arrange. This is the first challenge, and this is going to go ahead and give us a tutorial on it. You take chambers from the menu, and put them in here. Now, there are different sets of chambers here. These are the entrance chambers. Basically, entrance chambers are where the player will start in the dungeon. These here are the boss chambers. These are the final bosses of each dungeon and are used accordingly. We already have both a dungeon, we already have both a boss and an entrance in this dungeon, so we're not going to be having to place either of those. Now, these are one-way rooms, which means they only have one door. Some of them have passageways, as you can see. Passageways automatically link to other passageways. You cannot manually set passageways between two different passageway rooms, so keep that in mind. Here we have one-way doors from the top down, from the left, and from the right. Moving on, we have two-way passageways. As you can see, they are from both top and bottom, side to side, top and left, top and right, left and down and right. Now, if you see one that has like the amiibo symbol or a lock symbol on top of it, that's just one you recently unlocked. And before we move on, the chest symbol indicates that there is a chest or usually rupees or a key to obtain from inside that room. The locked door symbol indicates that one of the doors is in fact locked. Now, continuing on, we now have the three-way passages. These are the same as before, but with 3 doorways instead of just 2 or 1. And as you can see, there are sometimes mini-bosses or even bosses inside of these smaller rooms. They're usually the same as the normal bosses. And lastly, the 4-way rooms. These are the same all around. They do not vary depending on which room type it is. And effect panels, finally. Right now we only have one effect panel. You do unlock more as you move on through the dungeons. And by the way, we don't have every tile unlocked right now, because the way we're going to unlock the rest of them, since the last 6 we have to unlock are unlocked via the shop, and the rest of them are also unlocked by actually completing the challenges, we don't actually have all of them. The way we're going to unlock them is by gaining rupees. because as you complete the challenges, you will actually gain a substantial amount of rupees. It can be helpful for saving rupees in the entire game. However, it is also quite helpful for saving rupees for more chamber dungeons. Eventually, we will also unlock an effect that allows us to spawn more rupees in a room, and we also get to keep all rupees we obtain while completing one of these dungeons, so keep that in mind. So starting off here, we're actually going to go ahead and make a very simple dungeon starting off. We're just going to make an example sort of type thing. We're going to go ahead and just drag and drop a few here. So, like it says there, the Nightmare's key, which is the boss key, that's always going to be in the last room of the dungeon, so keep that in mind. So we're just going to make our dungeon very simple here. Make sure everything is set into place. I don't want to make a very complicated one since, like I said, this is just an example dungeon. And when a room is red like this, that means there is something preventing the dungeon and that room from being functional. In this case, it's because these rooms are not attached to the entrance, therefore they're not registered as part of the dungeon. The entrance is marked as red because there is one doorway that is not connected to any other room. That needs to be fixed, and we will do so right now with this passageway here. And now, all of these other rooms are suddenly blue. This room and this room are both still red because they are not connected to one another, so we will go ahead and fix that right now. And that is how the chamber dungeons works. Like it said there, when the chamber dungeon starts flashing green, that means that it is complete and you can go ahead and play it. We're going to play through this dungeon specifically just to show you how it works. All of the tiles are pulled specifically from dungeons. Some of them are pre-made and aren't in any other dungeons, but they are all pre-made. You cannot make your own tiles. Unfortunately, it would be cool to do so, but you cannot. So, all of this is going to look pretty familiar to us. There's nothing really new in here. However, we are experiencing this in a customized layout. By the way, something I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but using Mambo's Mambo in dungeons will allow you to teleport to the beginning of the dungeon. I'm not fairly certain if that applies in chamber dungeons, but keep that in mind for at least normal dungeons. If you want to try it in chamber dungeons, feel free to do so, but I'm not sure if it works. I'm going to go ahead and move up here. And what we're going to do, go ahead and place bombs. Also, like I said, any rupees you gain while in the chamber dungeon are kept. You do not lose any of them. So keep that in mind while you are playing. You will not obtain a dungeon map or a compass in any of these dungeons. You will only receive rupees and keys as necessary. There will always be exactly as many keys as are necessary for the dungeon to 100% complete the dungeon. If there is a key to a doorway that isn't required to beat the dungeon, you are going to be able to find the key for that doorway, but it's not necessarily required. Also, the type of rupee in most chests is usually randomized, so keep that in mind. We're gonna go ahead and light these torches here because these boos are being quite the nuisance to us. Once we defeat them, let's go ahead and drop a chest. So, as you can tell, all of these tiles are from different dungeons, various dungeons, and we just got the Nightmare key, which means 1, we have the access to the boss area. 2, we now have all chests in the game, or in the dungeon, which means there are no more chests for us to open. So once you have the Nightmare key, you don't really have to look for any more treasure chests. Keep that in mind. Also, I'd like to mention you have all of your weapons and items from the normal game. You do not lose any of them. So, when you're in a chamber dungeon, you can just play like you've been playing. You don't lose anything. It doesn't reset your progress to what it would be for the difficulty of that dungeon or challenge. Alright. I'm gonna go ahead and open this up and tackle the last boss. Alright, so we're fighting this guy again. Very interesting. Go ahead and just handle him pretty quickly. He's not a very hard boss to tackle. We already fought this guy once before anyway. Once he actually opens his tail flower. And that was quick, 2 hits. It's easier to defeat than the last mini-boss we fought. But yeah, that's all done and over with. Dungeon Raging 101 has been cleared. And like I said, for completing dungeons, you receive prizes. So, we receive another chamber. And like he said there, you get to keep all of your rupees. He also just added a new challenge to our list. Adventure here. Adventure is basically, you get to replay the dungeons you have already made. Not much more difficult than that. So, here's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be going through every challenge. I'm not going to be showing you the process of putting together or playing through the dungeons, but I will be showing you the arrangements I make for each dungeon and the prizes you get for completing them. Now keep in mind, I will not be showing you the specific, I'm not going to show you the most efficient path for getting through each dungeon with each tile, because there are various different paths and it would take a long time to really figure that out. Just keep in mind, what I will put down will work. So, let's go ahead and get started. One thing I would like to mention real quick. The cracked wall indicates that it's a wall that can be blown up with a bomb. The lock symbol on the tile, but not the chambers, indicates that a locked door is required to be there, whereas a chest icon indicates that a room with a chest is supposed to be there. Alright, so this is a basic layout I chose for placing the basics, and now we're going to go ahead and show you the reward for placing the basics. And now for completing placing the basics, we receive another chamber. Alright, so here's a simple layout I made for a passage across. Alright, so we've completed a passage across, and this time we're going to receive yet another chamber. Alright, so here's a basic layout I made for Fill Up Your Hearts. One thing I did forget to mention earlier, the dungeon maps do not appear in the chests because your map is already generated and you already have the locations of every chest and door, which means you also don't get the compass as a result. Alright, Fill Up Your Hearts has been completed. And now we actually get a secret seashell. And a piece of heart. Very awesome. So now, we can arrange a dungeon whenever we want, and we also open up a new challenge. As you can see, we've actually opened up Tier 2 of the challenges. All of the Tier 1 challenges have been completed. Tier 2 has opened up 3 challenges for us. Now, before we go ahead and continue on with this, I would like to mention we now have 50 secret seashells. We also have 1 piece of heart remaining. So, before we continue on, we're actually going to go to the Seashell Shack. And we are going to be completing our last reward for finding all 50 seashells. Well, this is the last time we're going in here. Let's go ahead and step on the pedestal. And now, it finally fills up to maximum capacity. First, we're going to get the first gift. If we raise our sword overhead, we get new power. The Koholin sword. We have had our sword fully upgraded. And finally, we get the last gift from this. We have discovered every secret. The proof is in the seashells you hold. I acknowledge the perseverance it took. May fortune bless you wherever you roam. My task here is finished. And what we get? First of all, let's pick up all these rupees. And then open this up. A chamber stone. How fitting, since we're covering chamber dungeons in this episode. Alright, I'll see you guys back at Dampe Shack. Alright, so here's one possible layout for Key Hunter. Oh, I just noticed that. One thing we can actually do now that we have the Koholint sword is we can actually break pots with our sword, so keep that in mind if you want to break them quickly without having to throw them. One thing I would like to mention as well, the covalent sword also now produces a burst of energy, sending a beam flying out if we swing our sword while we're at full health. It only works while we're at full health, not the other way around. Alright, so Key Hunter is complete, and in return we'll receive yet another chamber. Alright, so here's a layout I've chosen for Bombs Away. Alright, so Bombs Away has been completed, and in exchange for completing it, we get yet another chamber stone. And a bombs effect, which will cause bombs to rain from the sky in ungodly terror. Alright, so this is the layout I've chosen for Treasure Vault. Alright, and Treasure Vault has been cleared, and in exchange we get a chamber. And now we have a new challenge unlocked. So, we've unlocked Passageways Central for the Tier 2 dungeons, but we've also unlocked Tier 3 dungeons now. Alright, so this is the layout I picked for Passageways Central. And we have completed Passageway Central. And in exchange, we get our final piece of heart, which means we now have all but one heart piece. Or heart container, I should say. Go ahead and press quit, just so that registers. Yep. This shall now be forever empty, for we need no more. Which means there are now only two things left for us to get in the entire game. This and the last heart container. Here is but one possible layout for Stair Decisions, the first Tier 3 challenge. Oh, I don't know why my mind was drawing a blank, but we just completed that dungeon. And in exchange, we got a chamber. Alright, here's one layout I picked for Heart Shortage. And we have finished Heart Shortage. In exchange for completing this, we get yet another chamber. But we also get our last remaining bottle. So this here is the arrangement I created for Sheath Sword. Alright, we have completed Sheath Sword, which means we've now unlocked yet another chamber stone. There's a lot of chamber stones. And we also get a plus hearts effect, which means it'll now rain down hearts if we apply this effect. Alright, here's the layout I have chosen for Ticking Clock. Alright, we've completed the timer challenge, which grants us a new chamber, and our final heart container, which means we now have all required items for 100% completion. We've also gotten a plus Wallmaster's effect, which I'm not gonna use. I don't like Wallmasters. So, what Dampe's done, he's actually thrown together that are the toughest out of all of them. They are these golden challenges here. All of these are extremely difficult challenges. Well, not extremely, but they are tough. However, they all grant you rupees for completing them. For the sake of convenience, we're not going to cover these today. I recommend you do these on your own time if you need rupees for anything. And these will all give you rupees. And I encourage you to try and complete these. It's sort of a challenge that you can kind of overcome. It's kind of neat to do. So, with that all said and done, we're going to go ahead and leave the dungeon creator. We now have all 5 hearts, all 3 bottles, and all upgrades. So what we're going to do, we're going to make one last visit to the claw machine. Alright, so after you beat the final boss of the game, and only after you beat the final boss of the game, you're going to want to go ahead and head into the trendy game. And you'll see that we now have a Bow Wow figurine available to us. So we're going to go ahead and work to go ahead and get that, in fact. figures were always having trouble with the trendy game. Alright. Let's just go ahead and get this. Come on. Alright, move the crane all the way up. And we're actually going to move it all the way down. Grab it, grab it, grab it. Yes! There we go. We now have the Chain Chomp figurine. The Chain Chomp figurine is your reward for collecting all of the other figurines in the game. And, of course, also beating the game. To my knowledge, you don't really put this anywhere specific. Although I may be wrong in that regard. You've got a good eye and a steady hand. In here, that makes you a champion. Here's the lump of rock to prove it. I think it's called a Chamber Stone? That's correct. You get another Chamber Stone for collecting every figurine. And listen, no champ pays more than 5 rupees to go in my establishment. So now, this just became a way more affordable method of grinding rupees as well, because now you pay 5 rupees per draw instead of 10. Very interesting indeed. So, I believe this is our last figurine, so real quick, we're gonna go ahead and see if we can go ahead and put it down somewhere. If we go inside this house, I believe there is in fact a pedestal for it. Yep. Go ahead and put the Bow Wow statue right there. And that is all we have until the end of the game. So in the next episode of The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, we will be taking on the final boss and waking up the Windfish. I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.